The chopped cheese is one of life's greatest sandwiches, a true symphony of beef, cheese, bread, and fresh toppings wrapped in a tight little package. Except it's not perfect, because let's be honest, it can be a bit of a calorie bomb. This 420 gram or almost 1 pound chopped cheese clocked in at 1,265 calories, so I asked myself, how would I make a similar size chopped cheese that is lower calorie but doesn't sacrifice flavor? So, in today's video, we'll use the chopped cheese blueprint to make 2 different chopped cheeses with 2 different flavor profiles and 2 different caloric totals. One is a full-on gluttonous version made with Calabrian mayo and some Italian cheeses, and secondly, a lower calorie jalapeno cheddar version. Of course, we'll taste test them side by side at the end of the video, and I'll explain the reasons why I made the choices I did. So first, let's break down that chopped cheese framework, and then we'll go into that 5th cardinal sin version. The classic chopped cheese really boils down to just a couple of core components. The base is, of course, a sturdy hoagie roll, which is then typically lubricated with some mayo. Next, you have the seasoned ground beef with onions. A few slices of American cheese are then melted into that beef before topping it with some fresh shredded lettuce and thinly sliced tomato. And this illustration was actually a part of my newsletter, which is completely free and comes out every Sunday. So I'll leave a link below if you guys want to see what we got going on over there. But anyway, once you understand these core components, there's really 3 areas where you can start to bend the flavor profile to your will. And these are 1, the spices that you add to the ground beef. Secondly, experimenting with different types of cheeses. And thirdly, adding spices or different sauces to your mayo. And we'll hit each of these areas. And for my taste, I think one of the best things you can do for a chopped cheese is add a bit of spice somewhere and get some variety on the cheeses. And this first version is so damn good. So for the sandwich components, I have a sturdy sandwich roll that I cut down to 10 inches and then sliced in half. And you can make your own sandwich rolls or just find the best tasting ones you have at your local bakery or grocery store, like I did this time around. For the fresh stuff, get a head of lettuce and shave it as thinly as possible. And the thinner the better. This will create more surface area for that fat to intermix once we wrap the sandwich. Next, I have some tomatoes, which again, I want them to be thinly sliced and uniform as possible. And for an extra bump of flavor, I like adding a little sprinkle of fresh cracked black pepper and some salt. And then we'll toss these right on the sandwich at the end. Before we get to the beef, take a quarter of an onion and either dice it or cut it into thin slices. And I prefer the texture of thin slices, and also it's just a slightly more subtle onion flavor that you get when mixing it with the beef over a dice. And last up, let's make our lubrication. So set a bowl over a scale and add 30 grams of mayo along with 10 grams of Calabrian chilies that are mixed in oil and 5 grams of vinegar for a touch of acidity before mixing that up. And this is a sauce I highly recommend you make a lot of, keep it in the fridge, and throw it on everything. But now, let's cook the beef. Set a pan or griddle over medium heat and add 200 grams of 7327 ground beef along with a big sprinkle of salt and optionally a pinch of MSG. Now obviously, 7327 ground beef is high fat, so it's going to start to render out. But as I found in my burger video, this extra fat really makes a big difference in flavor and texture. The render fat will lubricate all the other ingredients in the sandwich, transporting those flavors all throughout. Let the beef cook for 1 to 2 minutes without chopping. So while we wait, let me thank today's sponsor, Native, who is keeping me feeling fresh in the midst of all this beef. Native just launched their deodorant and body spray collection, which is great for fighting odor in both underarms and body use without the environmental guilt, since it uses a natural propellant and is packaged in a recyclable metal canister. Native's deodorant and body spray is very easy to apply, has a really light application, and doubles as an all-over fragrance spray. I got the cucumber mint, sea salt and cedar, and my favorite of the 3, eucalyptus and mint, which reminds me of chewing spearmint gum while hiking in a wood forest. Oddly specific? Maybe, but I swear that's what it smells like. So head to the link below and use code Chlebowski to get 20% off your first purchase at Native. And this offer is available site-wide, but only for a limited time, so stock up and save. And thank you again, Native, for sponsoring this video. After 2 minutes, the beef should have firmed up and the fat has definitely started to render out. So next, add the thinly sliced onions right on top and start breaking everything up with the spatula. And there's some cool flavor food science going on here. So the rendered fat is frying that onion and beef, creating tons of browning and additional aroma molecules, and just giving you a really, really nice flavor. After another 2 minutes, organize the beef into kind of a sandwich roll shape, and let's add our cheeses. So this is a mixture of 28 grams of sharp provolone and 28 grams of mozzarella that I just sprinkled right over the top. And then lastly, 1 slice of American cheese for the gooiness. While the cheese is melting, grab the sandwich roll and add 15 grams total of the spicy Calabrian mayo right to that bread. And once slathered, slap the bread right down on top of the cheese and meat. Let everything crisp up for 1 more minute and then flip it over, and we have this holy union of beef, cheese, and oniony goodness that is ready for our fresh toppings. To finish assembling, bring the chopped cheese over to a sheet of aluminum foil or parchment paper and top with the shredded lettuce. Now, importantly, add another 5-gram drop of that vibrant spicy mayo to the lettuce, and then go ahead and add the sliced and seasoned tomatoes. To contain this beast of a sandwich, do your best to push it down with a knife and then wrap it up. And this will compress everything and truly transform it into that bodega experience. Slice it open and we have an absolute masterpiece of a sandwich. Like I said, this one clocked in at 420 grams of weight, basically a full pound. And for the macros, it comes in at 1,265 calories. Now, before we taste test, we need to get to the jalapeno cheddar lower calorie option, and this begs a couple of questions. First is, what are we changing in this lower calorie versions? And maybe more importantly, what do we potentially give up in terms of flavor and texture? And quick disclaimer, there are countless ways we could go about lowering the calories. For one, instead of housing the whole thing, I could eat half for lunch and half for dinner. Maybe I just do some extra cardio on that day. Or if you wanted to reduce carbs, you could try a flatbread or using maybe corn tortillas or something. But for my instance, I want to make this as close to the experience as the original version because I like to eat high volume meals. For me, I want to keep the experience as close as I can to the original, so I'm going to be using the exact same hoagie roll, the shredded lettuce and tomatoes, and this means we need to look at these 3 areas, which are 1, the beef, 2, the cheeses, and 3, the sauce. So for the beef, I'm using 160 grams of 90-10 lean ground beef, and this results in 343 calories right off the bat. Now, you may be wondering, why am I using less beef overall? 160 grams of lean beef is going to be 144 grams of lean meat compared to 146 grams of lean meat in the 73-27 ground beef. So in terms of solid meat, this is going to feel like the same amount of beef, but here's the issue. The lean beef is going to feel dry and taste less beefy than that 73-27. And that is the issue we need to solve. You'll notice when we cook it, instead of rendered fat crisping up our onions, it's actually just water from the beef that is steaming off. So for this method, I like adding some pickled jalapenos and extra onions, which are going to add some additional liquid back to the beef, and those jalapenos provide a really nice spicy crunch. Speaking of, let me quickly breeze through my other choices. For the cheeses, I'm going with 1.5 slices of low-fat American cheese and 28 grams of shredded cheddar. And this is 185 calories compared to 249 that I used in the first version. Then secondly, I made a white sauce with mayo and low-fat sour cream. So for this, set a bowl over a scale and add 20 grams of mayo along with 20 grams of low-fat sour cream. Then I added a sprinkle of adobo seasoning and a spritz of lime juice before mixing that all up. Now it's not a ton, but per serving this is 27 fewer calories, and you could obviously mess around with ratios as needed, but let's quickly finish out this sandwich. Following the same process, set a pan or griddle over high heat and toss on the beef. And to season it this time, I'm using some adobo seasoning and sprinkling that all over. Again, let the beef cook for about 2 minutes without any chopping, and like I said, you'll see it steam instead of frying because there's way less fat. And after 2 minutes, this time I'm using about double the thinly sliced onions, which is going to do 2 things. One, provide more volume, and like I said, provide more moisture to our drier beef. After another 2 minutes, organize the beef into that sandwich roll shape, and right before adding the cheeses, toss on a handful of chopped pickled jalapenos, which are perfect for that spice and acidity. For the cheeses, add the shredded cheddar along with 1.5 slices of American cheese, and let that all melt. While that melts, again, get the roll ready. This time I use 15 grams of the white sauce on the roll before adding that right on top of the cheesy beef to let the bun steam and everything crisp on the bottom. A minute later, you can flip it over, and again, a beautiful concoction, amalgamation of cheese, beef, onion, and pickled jalapeno goodness. To finish assembling, bring the chopped cheese over to a sheet of aluminum foil and parchment paper and top with the shredded lettuce. Again, another baby drizzle of the sauce right on the lettuce, and then add the tomatoes. And this is another unit of a sandwich. This one was 422 grams, exact same size, except this time much lower calorie. For the macros, this comes in at 831 calories for the same size sandwich. But lastly, let's see how they stack up in the side-by-side taste test. I feel like Coke Zero or Coke is a no-brainer for this taste test. Oh my gosh, I've been waiting for this. Kind of just blacked out there for a second. I mean, that is just, and I love the spicy Calabrian mayo in this. Like, throw that on any hoagie sandwich, but especially the chopped cheese. I think spicy pairs so well with this. And that's why I love, playing around with kind of the basic blueprint and adding slightly different variations on the flavor profile. But you can't say enough about it. It's just amazing. But let's see how this lower calorie version stacks up, which I'll have calculated in the video, but I think this is probably 400 calories less for the whole thing. My goodness, chopped cheeses. Let's see how this one stacks up. Flat out delicious, but I'd be lying. This one is definitely better, and I think really just the big difference is that beef. The beefy flavor really comes through, obviously, in higher fat beef, which is something I figured, we've done some experiments on this in the past, especially in that burger video. It just melds everything together and really comes through. Now, if you weren't doing these side by side, you would have no idea that this is like a lower calorie version. You'd just be like, this is an absolutely amazing sandwich. But anyway, 2 amazing flavor profiles for chopped cheese to try at home, and both of them will be up on our website. And again, if you are trying to lower calories, there's plenty of ways you can go about it. We tackled leaner beef today. We did messed around with the sauce a little bit, messed around with the cheeses a little bit, depending on what you have. Plenty of options that you can do, but hopefully you guys have enjoyed. I'm going to demolish the rest of these, hopefully save these for dinner. They may not make it, but that will wrap it up for me in this one. I will catch you all in the next one. Peace, y'all.